Dr. Rik Mehta, are you embarrassed by these Trump supporters and the manner in which they try to storm Capitol? We're now seeing in the Senate some of the Republican senators cut their ties with Donald Trump, but many of them left it till too late, and many in the Republican Party are being blamed for having been part of this chaos.
Well, let's parse this through. First of all, one of the things that we do so poorly is that we make sweeping assumptions about everyone. Yesterday, there were more than 2.5 million people. Less than 200 of them were responsible for swarming the Capitol building and inciting violence. There is no place for violence in our country, and I'd like to think that America has become the greatest democracy that the world history has ever seen. Okay, so we can't let less than 0.01% of people, many who have been recognized as Antifa violent inciters. We saw that over the summer. We can't ignore the Black Lives Matter and the Antifa violence that has been happening for months in our country, and then attribute it to groups of people. The other thing we don't do well is listen. We don't listen to the voices of the people. 2 million people peacefully protesting because they feel like they've been disenfranchised. This isn't just more than stealing the election. This is assuring that we have free and fair elections. And I agree, we have to come together as a country, bipartisan, Republicans and Democrats, and work to ensure that any future election is secured and that we avoid this kind of issues related to fraud.
I didn't hear an apology or a condemnation as a representative of the Republican Party for the chaos that these Trump supporters inflicted on Capitol Hill and the message this sends about the state of democracies worldwide.
We condemn everybody who's involved with inciting violence. We got to wait to see what justice brings to who was involved. But attributing that to all 2 million people, many of them who I know that were there to peacefully protest of what they felt was a disenfranchisement of their constitutional right to vote, is also not the right answer.
Professor Sumit Ganguly, we saw also the police virtually allowing them in places, because you can't just, for example, storm the Indian Parliament and not have the security push you back. You had lax security being allowed to come in, and now you're hearing from the likes of Rik Mehta. He's saying that there are lots of people, only a few got violent. The others were sending a strong message that they don't like the manner in which the election results have been counted.
To begin with, there is not a scintilla of evidence that there was anything fraudulent or that there was any element of malfeasance in this election. This is simply a fabrication that has been promoted by President Trump and his closest allies, and they have not been able to produce a shred of evidence that would suggest that this election was compromised in any fashion. I want to be abundantly clear on this point. Secondly, it is also clear that the Capitol Hill police were abjectly unprepared for the onslaught, even though there was ample evidence of people gathering to wreak havoc on the Capitol Hill grounds. This was not only a failure of intelligence on their part, but this was a failure of preparation. And let me suggest a thought experiment for a second. Imagine for a moment if these people had been black or brown. They would have been mowed down by the police and the National Guard, as has been the treatment of the Black Lives Matter movement earlier this summer that was referred to just earlier by the previous speaker. The notion that somehow or other that BLM posed a threat to the United States and to order is just laughable.